Welcome back to American Agenda, where we continue to monitor the March for Israel happening right now in Washington, D.C.
Okay, joining us now, we got a big panel to discuss this. Editor-in-Chief of the National Memo, Joe Conason, and Ambassador for America First Policy Institute, and Newsmax contributor Jessie Jane Duff, plus distinguished professor at Touro University, Thane Rosenbaum, and John Burnett, who's been with us in the studio throughout the day. Jessie Jane, I'm going to let you have the first word here. What did you think of Mike Johnson's speech, the tone of it, the directness of it, and how he called ceasefires proposed by the Biden administration absolutely outrageous?
I thought it was spot on. And not only that, I wish we could get that type of energy coming out of the White House to persuade the American people to understand that Israel was attacked. Instead, we are trying to play both sides. We see a State Department that is very fickle with the numbers. We see Hamas releasing numbers of 10,000 Palestinians that are being slaughtered by Israelis, but yet the Red Cross has never been in there to verify any of these numbers. And the narrative of this combatant activity has gotten out of control with delusion and illusion. Meanwhile, Israel is being forced to defend itself, not just with public opinion, but fighting the UN, for goodness sake, to get behind them. It's been nothing but an uphill battle for Israel, and this administration has not demonstrated the energy levels like we had just heard today.
Yeah, let's actually take a look at that clip from House Speaker Mike Johnson, just if for anyone who might have missed it, let's listen in.
The calls for a ceasefire are outrageous. We stand with you in that. Hamas terrorists waged the bloodiest assault on Jewish lives since the Holocaust, and there are hundreds of hostages, many of them Americans, still stuck inside Gaza. Israel will cease their counteroffensive when Hamas ceases to be a threat to the Jewish state.
Yeah, Joe, I want to bring you in on this. You might have a different perspective, and I want to hear it.
Well, Mike Johnson doesn't have any responsibility for what actually happens over there. The Biden administration does. If you want hostages released, then the way to do it is not going to be through military force. They will get killed. And if you want to see any hostages come home alive, which I think all of us do, then you may have to have a negotiation, which is what the administration is attempting to do through Qatar. That doesn't mean you let Hamas off the hook ultimately, or that Israel doesn't eventually prosecute its force against Hamas to remove them from power. But this is a delicate situation, and people who talk about bringing the hostages back don't know what they're talking about if they don't realize that they need to have a negotiation for that to be accomplished.
Thane, what do you think about that?
That's number one.
Oh, well, let's bring Thane in here to this discussion here. We're limited on time.
Yeah.
Do you think that saying we're going to come in with military might and get our hostages back, that's not the way to do it?
Bob, all I could say is that we're assuming we're dealing with rational actors. We're dealing with jihadists that have already demonstrated, not just among Hamas, but Al-Qaeda and ISIS, they have no regard for human life. They're working behind human shields. They only understand one thing, force. So we have to stop looking at them like Barack Obama does. Barack Obama thinks that the people who are Hamas are like on the faculty lounge at the University of Chicago. We have to stop that. We have to stop that. And so you can't dress up a terrorist and say, he's just like the people we met at the PTA meeting. No, they're not. They're just not. And they don't understand it that way. They see ceasefire as American weakness. That's what they see. And so, unfortunately, it's a horrible, potential outcome. Mm-hmm. But the idea of negotiating with them is utter folly. I can tell you that the Ayatollahs of Iran were rolling on the carpets, their Persian carpets, throughout the Obama administration.
Laughing,
every day. Every day.
Yeah, John Burnett, I think a very interesting point there, Thane, where I think it's like literally we're not speaking the same language. Just the philosophy and the life goals, I'll just say, both in life and in death of the Hamas terrorists are very, very different from our Western culture. Exactly.
They worship death. So the person who was just speaking, sorry, I missed his name. What he said is utter nonsense.
If they worship death, Professor, if they worship death, then why would they fear death at the hands of Israel?
They don't fear death. To
Okay,
them, that's
so then you're not going to get the hostages released that way. You need to negotiate with them over something that they want. in
Says
order to
you,
get the
Joe
hostages
Conason,
back
sir.
on
Hey,
track.
gentlemen, let's
Where
bring in
does
John
that work?
Burnett here. Let's give him a chance to talk.
where
John,
does that work? Show me an example of where that's worked.
John, what do you think?
Where hostages have been released through negotiation many, many
With
times.
jihadists? No.
With
Jihadists?
well,
No.
I'm actually
Reagan
enjoying
administration
this.
had a long.
I'm actually enjoying
It is
this
a good
debate.
combo.
We're going to give
I
you
kind of want to
We had a
add
long
that. I'm sure you could pay $1 billion per hostage. How about that?
I want to put
That was just tried.
for $6 billion.
We got hostages released in Iran, sir. Do you remember? You're old enough to remember
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you know why that
Are they
was?
not terrorists? Were they not terrorists
First
in
of all,
Iran?
but that's just ridiculous. They were
Weren't they?
released
That's
because
ridiculous.
Jimmy Carter
But you asked
lost
me
that
for an
election.
example, and I gave you
They
one.
were released the minute Jimmy Carter left the White House.
But no, but there was a negotiation, and that after Jimmy Carter left the White House, there was a negotiation. They got something they wanted. The Reagan administration gave them a lot of what they wanted, as you know very well, secretly, and we got hostages out, among other things.
Well,
so
I know
don't
the
say you
most
can't, but
recent thing
they're
we
terrorists.
experienced with hostages, not to cut you guys off here, was $1 billion per hostage from Iran. And what happened next? This war. That's what broke out next,
Oh,
and that's what the negotiation did. But gentlemen, not to cut you off, I really would love to talk more. We're out of time. JB, we didn't even get you in here. So thank you, everyone. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
You bet.
Okay, still ahead. We continue to monitor the March for Rally in Israel.